Howdy, everybody. Happy 6th of May. Hopefully everybody's Cinco de Mayo is fairly tame. Glad to see a lot of people coming in. A lot of folks coming in. Thank you all for joining. Couple quick announcements. I know this has been our first webinar for a while, which is good. We appreciate all the folks that come back on the regular. Again, you can always find our webinar schedule and our recordings on the webpage. They're available. We'll get the link up for those so that you can find previous recordings, see what our schedule looks like, and find recordings of this session after the session is done. We'll put that up in chat for everyone so that you can follow along. Just a gentle reminder, I'd be remiss in not bringing it up. Yesterday, the registration for VMware Explorer started. So running a little bit of an early bird special. So if you'd like to go to Explorer in Vegas this year, check it out. Again, we have links at the main VMware page to go in and check out Explorer. And we're going to be running that special for a couple weeks. And then go back to our, slowly but surely go back to our regular pricing. But we also have a couple of other ticket options available for Explorer this year. So we'll have more information on that as we get a little further along. So that being said, that's not why we're here today. Today we actually have some special guests. Today we're talking about the top 5 criteria in choosing your right virtualization platform and things to look for, things to be considerate of. And with us today is Harshad Kolte. Harshad, you here?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. Yeah. If you want to take it away, it looks like we've got a full house out there.
Great. Thanks for that intro and logistics, Anders. Welcome, everybody, to today's seminar. Thanks for joining us today. Like you said, may the force be with you and your Cinco Mayo'd out. So we are at 6th of May. The aim today is to make sure that we have a very interactive session, hopefully. We have experts from Forrester, and we also have our own expert, Sandeep. I will go through a little bit of the introductions, but we want to keep this kind of like in the fireside chat type motion. So let's go ahead and start with the introductions. Let me go first. Hopefully you can see these slides change. I'm Harshad Kolte. I'm Product Marketing Manager for vSphere. I come from a very long background from networking in my past, and like from my master's and all of that. But I've been in core IT for the last about 10 plus years or so, working for Lenovo for a little bit, and then transitioning to VMware Broadcom. And I've also within VMware also the last 4 years I've transitioned and worked on VCF Cloud Foundation, as well as vSphere Foundation, and now I focus on vSphere on the product marketing side. Why don't we go next? Naveen, if you can introduce yourself, and after that, Sandeep.
Yeah, Harshad, thank you for having me here. It's great to join you. And for the audience, I'm Naveen Chhabra, and a principal analyst here at Forrester Research. And my role at Forrester is to lead research on all IT infrastructure. That includes research on all things, all infrastructure elements on premises and also on the cloud services. Like you said, Harshad, I've been part of the IT industry for more than I would care to remember, but I've had my hands dirty in product engineering, product R&D, sales and business development, and now as a market analyst. Glad to be talking to you all.
Yeah, and looking forward to insights from you. Sandeep, why do you go next?
Hey, thanks for inviting me to this webinar. Hey, Gal, I'm Sandeep Byreddy. I am part of the product management team in VMware Cloud Foundation division, part of Broadcom. I specifically lead the vSphere product management. So I've been in this industry specifically working around the infrastructure management stacks and virtualization stack in the past 2 decades in different companies. And my stint with VMware/Broadcom is there for the past 11 years on numerous areas what we've been investing across the compute, management stack and operation stack and many other things. I'm really glad to be part of this discussion. Thanks for inviting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for both for joining. Before we jump into the crux of the discussion, like we said, the topic for today is top 5 criteria. So we want to make sure that we are covering material that's relevant to you. We're going to kick things off with a quick poll. Anders, if you can launch the first poll. Basically this, and we have a few industry pain points that customers face today. We would like to see where you guys see this from a ranking perspective. If you can rank them from 1 to 5 and 1 being the highest. So what are the pain points for organizations today? Operational inefficiencies, planning for large workloads, performance needs for workloads, unauthorized access. What are those that are important to you? And we'll wait for the results to start coming in. And once we do that, we'll kick things off. So Andrews, let me know when some results start coming in. And while they are coming in, I'll mention Naveen is a superhero. That's why you can't see him. He's here today as the invisible Naveen Chhabra.
That's what hardware failure can do to you.
Hey man, that's one of the that we could be able to diagnose fast and recover from.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see the poll, so let me know. Great, we got some results coming in. What are pain points? A lot of as expected, operational inefficiency still standing at number 1, 89. Okay. Cool. Looks like so all of these are still relevant. Most of the folks have ranked them in, most of them at 1 to pretty much in very close to the order that we have presented them in. So that's a little positive. All right, let's kick things off first. And before we jump in, so Naveen introduced himself. He's a business analyst from Forrester. We wanted to kind of see, like, Naveen, from your perspective, in all of your years looking at this sector, and from all the research that you have accessible to you from Forrester side, what do you see today in the market related to these pain points? Can you please share some of your thoughts on what are those pain points? How do you go about looking at virtualization today? And let me know when I can need to go to your slide.
Yeah. So Harshad, I think that's a great question, as based on the past few years of working with clients, consulting and guiding them and coaching them on their IT investment decisions, and especially over the past year and a half, this question has come up to the one of the top important strategic decisions for CIOs and especially the infrastructure leaders. And in my conversation with several, say, few hundreds of tech decision makers in the past 1 year, I found that while their needs kind of vary depending on the sector, depending on the business and the applications and they are talking about, I think the results that we just saw, they are essentially in line with the responses that I see, when I talk to the clients. And if I were to summarize, thank you for moving the slide, Harshad. If I were to summarize some of the requirements, enterprise class requirements that come up to the top in almost all the conversations are as follows. Number 1, performance, scalability, and I'm not putting those in any order just because the audience here has given their poll, in which it turned out that security was the number 1 element, and it is very interesting to see security is top of mind even for IT infrastructure folks. But alongside, there was a fair competition between other elements like hey, is performance more important? Is scalability more important, or availability, or fault tolerance, or even the um, operational excellence, operational improvements? Those are more important in a complex world. And it turns out, as these requirements kind of show up as equally important, uh, my way of communicating with the clients is to always talk through examples and or situations. So here I'm, through the slide, I'm highlighting, those requirements like scalability, fault tolerance, um, scheduling, easier said than done. Those are all the requirements that come up at the top. So as I said, let's talk through some examples or situations. First and foremost, here is, I'll start off with performance.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the largest financial institutions like the banks, the stock exchanges in the world that are aiming towards settling trades within few milliseconds. Think about that. And that's a business requirement. Every organization is kind of struggling to meet those objectives. And it's not just the financial institutions. Think of healthcare, think of retail, pharma. Every industry has that requirement. So performance from that perspective is kind of a table stakes in terms of the requirements that IT leaders must meet for their businesses. Very similarly, businesses manage like millions of payments every second. About several payment integration and gateways that have come up in the past few years, and these systems are required to be performant as well as scalable at the same time, because while it is performance, it is also making sure that it is processing millions of transactions like every minute. The next element that I see very common in my conversations is availability, and I equate that to fault tolerance, simply because infrastructure failure is a very common occurrence. You see that is impacting me today, right? My hardware failed, I cannot come on camera, but am I resilient enough with my technology that I can communicate with the audience today? Yes, I am, and that is what is required. Infrastructure failure is a common occurrence. It will impact availability, and hence the clients often ask about fault tolerance. These performance and scalability and requirements, they are not an exception. Like the scale that I talked about, they're not an exception. They are table stakes today. In fact, enterprise requirements are continuing to push the existing boundaries across all dimensions and are leading to several market-leading innovations as well, technological innovations. So, in my communication, talking to the clients, while they're looking at these hypervisor alternatives, I always guide them to think of in 3 discrete layers. What are these layers? The one that you see here is the hypervisor layer that that does the compute virtualization. It just doesn't do that, but it also impacts several aspects, including the infrastructure architecture, the operational functions, and those functions include monitoring, security, data protection, disaster recovery, and so on. So, for example, firms can protect data at several layers, at the storage layer, at the hypervisor, or OS and application. And one of the very common mechanisms of data protection today is at the hypervisor layer. So the question that I ask my clients, that's a prompt, not necessarily a question. That's a prompt for them to think about what hypervisor is the right one for them to decide on, is to think about, can that hypervisor layer provide the transaction level data consistency, data protection, data backup, and recovery, and so on and so forth. And it is not all by itself. It is in addition to the achieving the same level of data protection, whether you do it at the database level or the operating system level or whatever, across the 4 levels that you achieve. But hypervisor layer based data protection is a critical requirement. And can you achieve that with the same level of granularity that your business requires? So that's one aspect. The other aspect that I often talk about, maybe you can click, Harshad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other aspect is also about disaster recovery or business continuity. In my experience over the past, like I can tell you, 8-9 years, I've seen that organizations often use hypervisor level capability for failure detection, protection, and recovery. We also talk about the security, and as it turned out, when we looked at the poll results, security at infrastructure layer is one of the top concerns. That was the number one rated with number one, as number one element in their decision making by the audience. So that's important. Why? Because think about the security. It is not just securing the operating system, but it is also required to secure the infrastructure, the hardware underneath, because you don't want to leave any door open for any infiltration, any vulnerability, zero-day exploits, and things like that. And hence, security becomes number one element. And think about it: it is not the hypervisor layer capability; it is an add-on, right? And hence, it is required for the audience to think about in three layers. Like the bottom layer here represents the infrastructure. Can the infrastructure and the architecture deliver all your business requirements? And the layer above, is the hypervisor by itself capable of delivering all the performance, the scalability, fault tolerance, those kind of capabilities? And then the layer above, which is more of a northbound integration from the hypervisor, which is to achieve your business continuity, IT continuity, which is to achieve your security, which is also to achieve your monitoring and observability kind of stuff. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to report on all those aspects. And hence, monitoring becomes very important. So this is a three-layered approach that I have been talking to my clients about how they should think, how they should prioritize and think about the right hypervisor for their organization.
Perfect.
I'll take a pause there.
Yes. No, that was very, very good, comprehensive. It covered many of the points that the audience has already identified, and also some of the things that we have seen out. As we go through, we'll highlight some of these. Want to take a moment to just give an idea of where we stand from VMware Broadcom side. And of course, we are going to talk a little bit about vSphere and what our capabilities are, and we'll try to tie it back into some of these points that we heard. Just talk about. He talked about performance, scale, some of the options of what is expected of that layer. So with that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about vSphere and where we stand today, and then we'll go up into some Q&A, like as we promised for the fireside chat. So when we look at vSphere today, right? vSphere has been in existence for over the last decades and more, and it's been evolving itself, providing more and more capabilities along the way. When we think about vSphere today, and kind of a little going back to some of the points that Naveen made, we think of it from three pillars or capability pillars, if you will. We help our customers modernize the compute infrastructure. I know it's a little overused and a cliche term, but we'll talk a little bit about what that means. We talk about the needs for modern workloads. Naveen mentioned a couple of them when it came to performance or and such. And we talked a lot already about the importance of security and what is required for that, some of the table stakes for that. I'll also mention that, it needs to be addressed, but vSphere today is available primarily through vSphere Foundation, and it exists standalone, but it's the compute engine that powers our flagship products, right? vSphere Foundation, VCF. So that's a way for our customers to consume vSphere. But let's go back to some of the capability pillars that we have, right? From a modernization compute infrastructure perspective, what do we do? And some of these things not quite came there, but were in our poll question as well. Was as far as when it comes to hardware, the bottommost layer that Naveen referred to. Yes, the issue still exists today that there are silos. Data center consolidation is, however cliched and old it may sound, it still is occurring. And with that, it brings complexities of all kinds of the different tool set it has, different management platforms it may have, and customers can benefit from a unified management. One way to look at all of those in a single way. At the same time, again, referring to some of the point that Naveen made on from a scalability perspective, right? There is a need for us as a vendor to be able to support modern workloads as well as our traditional or legacy workloads. We are required to support the older processors as well as the all of the latest greatest processors from the different vendors, as well as whether it's GPUs, DPUs, etc. So that customers can make sure that they are leveraging the latest technology, and basically being able to make sure that the right type of workload uh, my scaling path does exist, which is one of the things that we can deliver with vSphere. I'll refer to a little bit from a TCO perspective. Cost has not come up in our discussion yet, but it is something at the back of the mind. And over here as an infrastructure, I'm referring more to the capabilities that we have that allow customers to squeeze the most out of their existing environments, make the most out of their existing hardware or whatever those may be. And there are certain features, and Sandeep will refer to some of these a little later on. I'll mention some of the other things that, from a workloads perspective and for talking about that performance and scale angle. We didn't quite get there, and I have a follow-up question potentially for both Naveen and Sandeep that, we do see out in the market that there is a trend for modern workloads to leverage microservices-based architecture, container architecture, Kubernetes. And for us from vSphere side, we pride ourselves on being able to do provide that management in a consistent fashion, whether it's for VMs or containers. And there are services that at the supervisor layer, which allow not just IT admins or cloud admins, but also developers and platform engineers to be able to get access to those infrastructure services. It can be for storage networking for sure, but also for VM services themselves, being able to manage VMs easily, as well as for containers. The built-in Kubernetes runtime does have its advantages, and being able to give all of those services. We had a session like this about 7-8 weeks ago, where Himanshu and Brent from Forrester also talked about this. So we delved heavier into this side of the platform in that session. But it's important for us to know. Finally, I'll not belabor the point, but some things are you mentioned it also, right? Some things are table stakes. Being able to do security at every layer of the stack is important. We can't I mean, nobody calls out today and says, oh, VM encryption and data encryption at rest or in transit. vMotion is talked about as, table stakes. It's something that has to happen, but it has to happen in a secure fashion. And that's where some of the intrinsic capabilities built into the vSphere platform do shine out. So not to tout our own horn, but that's something that customers need to remember. That while selecting the platform, you need to be able to see, okay, does the platform do all of these things that are required, not just from the intrinsic security built into the platform, but also from monitoring that, being able to do compliance, drift, so on and so forth. So I'll stop there. And before we jump in, I have some questions for both Naveen and Sandeep, but we haven't given Sandeep the opportunity to talk yet. I have a initial question for him. I covered in broad strokes and referred to some features here and there about what vSphere has been doing for the building for the last couple of decades. I want you to talk a little bit about, when it comes to manageability, this complexity angle and and being able to do that at scale. How have we at Broadcom VMware focused on it? How you as the PM for vSphere, how do you take this into account and build this into making things easier for the admins, lifecycle management wise and planning for scale? If you can share your thoughts.
Absolutely. And thanks for the question. So basically, you and Naveen covered some of the critical points, what customers have been looking for. I think one of the consistent feedback, what we hear from our customers is also around the same lines, right? So we work with many customers who have their data centers, not just in a couple of data centers. Okay, it's spread across many geos. So many geos and thousands of hosts and tens of thousands of workloads running across. So the key challenges, right? I think what we hear is also aligned with what customers have highlighted as a top problem pain point. So if we address that, okay, that's very helpful for them to manage their scale environment. So in view of that, in the past few releases, we made some key investments that will literally help customers to manage this large scale infrastructure. So I'll touch few of them. Actually, I think we can go endless because the number of enhancements, the number of new capabilities what we introduced are limitless. So, but I'll touch the few key pain points, right? The first and foremost thing is around the lifecycle management. So what does lifecycle management bring? One thing is, okay, the downtime. It brings the downtime. When you are trying to patch your infrastructure, let's assume I really provide any critical security patch or something like that. Customers wants to patch that across their fleet, then it incurs huge downtime, which requires customers to spend enormous amount of effort planning the maintenance window and going through the cycle, repeating the cycle across data center by data center. So to alleviate that problem, one of the main focus what we have been trying to bring within the product is, okay, how can we keep our upgrades non-disruptive, right? The key goal is to help customers meet their SLAs. So without any disruption to their infrastructure, to their environment and all of that. So in that effort, already with ESXi, we are introducing live patching capability. So the goal for us is, okay, for vSphere as such, is to ensure any security patch, you should be able to patch it without any planning, without any downtime and without the need for planning any maintenance window. So that is something what we already launched as part of ESXi in our previous releases in 8.0 and all. And we're investing a lot in that. And in addition to that, even for the core management stack, we've introduced some new upgrade capability called reduced downtime upgrade, which will bring the downtime from a couple of hours or to less than 3 minutes. So that's how much we reduced. In fact, our goal is to bring it literally to zero. That's the eventual goal with which we are working on. So, and it's not just limited to the upgrade, right? I think some of the key pain points, what our customers keep bringing to us is, okay, hey, we have a new SLA. So where we have to rotate or renew our certificates automatically every 90 days or every 30 days or so. So, but my concern is that, okay, if I rotate my certificates, it will incur some kind of downtime. I don't want to go through that. So I try to plan my certificate management renewals with the upgrade window. So that literally goes against the organization policy, what customers have. That's one more key pain point what we are trying to we resolved actually. So we invested heavily on making this entire operations non-disruptive. Anything you do with certificate renewal or rotation within vSphere, you don't have to go through any of the maintenance window option. So that's around the non-disruptive options, right? So and other things is around making the upgrades faster and reliable. So downtime is okay, but reducing the maintenance window is okay. But if the upgrade goes on for, it takes you a couple of weeks or so, it still beats the purpose. So another key investment, what we are doing is, okay, the fleet level upgrade management, which you can do upgrade multiple clusters or multiple vSphere instances at the fleet level at one go at a much faster pace. And this even accounting for the firmware upgrades as well. So, which is another major pain point. So ideally, customers end up doing the firmware upgrade separately and then the software stack upgrade separately. But we have come up with a unified flow, which simplifies this entire process actually. And another investment, which I want to highlight, the key thing is, see, why vSphere is the best compute platform to build your private cloud is because it's unified stack to manage compute, storage, network. Right? You don't have to bring in different products and struggle to keep them, maintain them, manage them, or monitor them. vSphere, we provide single and unified API and user interface to manage all these three key layers from one place. So there is no context switching. So even the bring up, the consumption, the time to value, what you get with this thing is quite phenomenal, actually. Over the time, we made this integration much more seamless, and much simple enough to get started and using this one also.
Perfect.
So, and finally, I'll just end with one thing. Okay, one more investment point. So, as I mentioned, that there are limitless capabilities what we introduce, but I want to highlight our automation aspect as well. So, automation is a key thing, right? Okay, when we go to any customer, okay, the important thing what they suggest us is, okay, hey, we completely shifted to automation story. What is your story around, okay, helping us with this, creating this repeatable and consistent infrastructure at scale? So we invested a lot on making or converting our entire APIs to REST and our integration with Ansible, Terraform kind of tools, and also providing this unified SDKs so that you don't, it's much easy for you to get started with your automation journey. So, and also we are, most importantly, we are working on the desired state configuration, so which will help you create a repeatable and consistent infrastructure, so at scale. So these are some of the investments what we have done in this line, actually.
Awesome. No, thanks for those, and thanks for pointing out those capabilities, Sandeep. I know I briefly mentioned this, and I'm going to pose this question to Naveen. While it is understood, that this is about top 5 criteria, right? And none of the criteria that we are really going after is from a cost, but cost is something that people think about, customers do think about. TCO is what we end up really referring to, total cost of ownership, but it manifests itself in different ways. Naveen, where do you see like the cost angle coming in? And I'm not referring to just our bundling and SKU and things like that, but is that a factor? I mean, sounds like it would be, but we don't hear people just talk about a cost because it's given. What are your thoughts on that as a selection?
Yeah, I think cost certainly is an element. TCO, ROI, these are proven mechanisms by which organizations identify what's going to be the right technology given their budget and appetite and things like that. More often than not, I see that as not as a capability element, because when tech decisions are made, they're primarily made on the technology capability. But at the end of the day, every capability has a cost. So it's a balance that organizations try to achieve. It is becoming more and more prominent than in the past. But I don't see that organizations view that as a capability, right? And hence probably that's one of the reasons, Harshad, it didn't appear up in the capability list, the top 5 capability list, but it is an essential element. End of the day, nothing moves without money. And the CFO organizations is certainly taking a close look at the spending, the benefits that organizations can accrue with those investments, and how far can that investment take that organization in achieving the business results that they aspire to.
Great. Well, thanks for the insight. It was important for us to get kind of that other viewpoint as well. I'm going to pose a similar question to Sandeep. We being on the Broadcom side, we have faced several questions on our costs, etc. But I'll ask Sandeep this question. What have you heard from customers? Is cost planning important to them? Because I know that we spend some time making things easier for customers. How are you looking at it from, hey, that vSphere is my product. I want to make sure that I can deliver the most value. From that angle, if you can speak for what you see from the customers, TCO, ROI, making things life easy.
Yeah, so Naveen has put it very nicely. So even though it doesn't show in the top list what customers are saying, but underneath, everything is driven with the cost aspect, right? So when we talk with our customers, so our TCO or ROI aspects come in 3 ways, actually. So the first and foremost thing is the hardware utilization, right? Okay, it's one of the expensive component within the data center. And the important thing what customers keep highlighting is, okay, hey, how efficiently are they able to utilize the hardware without impacting the performance? So the caveat is without impacting the performance. So the efficient or full utilization of hardware should not be at the cost of performance. The goal is not to run more VMs at a degraded performance, but at a better performance, in fact. So why vSphere is the best compute platform to run any application type is because of this factor. So we provide the best hardware utilization to run without degrading any of the performance. So that's something what customers are very much keen on understanding. Hey, what new things are coming up to improve this efficiency? So that's first thing. Second thing, which I covered earlier, okay, is the management or operational overhead, right? So which is even highlighted by the customers as well. So they want to see lower and lower management overhead with that. So the ultimate goal at the point what customers keep highlighting is, okay, hey, I want to be able to scale my infra without the need for scaling the number of people to manage it or the number of resources needed to manage that are okay without me ending up rewriting my entire automation, all of that, right? So I was highlighting some of the key capabilities like, okay, how can we simplify the patch management? If we eliminate the entire maintenance window, so that significantly brings down the operational overhead for customers. Like that, we are also working. I mean, there are a few interesting things which customer keeps bringing. Like, okay, hey, about the SLAs. It's not just only during the maintenance window operations, right? There are unplanned downtimes as well. So how can we help them mitigate these kind of unplanned downtime scenarios and get out of that one at a much quicker pace? So that is another important thing, which is as part of this lower management overhead and all of that, right? Or the lower operational expenses. And the third and most important thing is, okay, the support, the bundled support, right? So we try to make the product as much seamless, as much self-diagnosable as possible, provide with all the possible information. But at the end of the day, if there are some critical issues where our customers are looking for support, they want to get the quick resolution and quick support for the entire stack without the need for having to ping pong across different stakeholders. Okay, hey, there is issue in compute stack, there's issue in storage stack, there's issue in network stack. Okay, they don't have to deal with multiple people. So we provide the expert who can give that diagnosability, that analysis across the stack and help them come out of those issues at a much quicker pace, right? So in summary, in a sense, okay, it's bundled into three things, okay? How we can provide the best utilization of the infrastructure without compromising on performance and efficiency. And second thing is, okay, helping them reduce the operational overhead and the operational expenses. So that is the second most important thing. And third one is, okay, this bundled support, what we provide to the customer, helping them to meet their SLAs without having to navigate across different stakeholders if they run into any challenge or issues. So I see TCO more in those aspects as well. So it's tied with that too. Yeah.
No, I agree with this. This kind of guides our roadmap as well, right? Of what we want to deliver. Great. I'm going to ask one more question to Naveen and you referred a little bit to it. When it comes down to some fundamentals, we tout ourselves, we can do scale, 768 VMs, and, we can do large databases and large workloads. How important has that become today, according to you, or what you see out there? Is our customer saying, yeah, scale is great, but I don't need it. Large data, awesome. And maybe for a corner case. How do you see this manifesting itself in the selection criteria, right? How are customers looking at it from use case? Is it different at the different verticals? You refer to a little bit, but if you can expand a little bit on that, because again, it goes back to the selection of the platform.
Yeah, and I'm glad, Harshad, you picked up on that, as it seems it is a critical element for the audience here. So scale doesn't. So I would not say that it is applicable just for a particular industry vertical. Not the case. The way I see that manifesting in organizations' decision making is, hey, what's my business application that requires that scale? Right? And there might be certain applications within each industry, within each organization that require that scale. Not all applications require the same scale. And I often give this example of, hey, you have an internal expense management system. Probably business doesn't come to a screeching halt, a grinding halt, if that expense management application is not able to scale. But if your customer support system is not able to scale, then that's a major issue, right? What gets media attention, right, is a proxy to looking at, what's important for your business, right? Like billing is important for CFO, collections is important for a financial institution, and things like that, right? What drives that business is important, and that defines the scale, and that defines what portion of applications require that scale, right? And driving from that business requirement to the infrastructure requirement, since not all applications require the same level of scale, my underlying infrastructure for different applications could be different. Right? That is how I see, and scale is not just the only element here. It could be performance, it could be fault tolerance and other elements, right? There would be a section of applications that would require all those capabilities, and hence those capabilities, in a sense, would define what scalable system I bring, what scalable infrastructure I bring to the table for certain applications, and for the rest of applications, maybe I don't.
A quick follow-up on that for this latter thing.
I hope that answers.
No, it's great, but I do have a follow-up. So it's use case based, right? The requirements change. But I'm a Fortune 500 company. I have kind of dual requirements, right? For XYZ application, XYZ use case, I need lesser scale or lesser performance, or it may be less stringent. But at the same time, I have to support this other use case within my organizations. Are customers taking the approach that I'll do one option for this and some other option for that, or they started leaning towards, say, why don't I just have one which does all as a platform, but different?
Yeah, that's a good point, Harshad. And over the past several years, we have seen this intent of consolidation on one technology, one stack, one provider. Well, in a sense, one technology for your overall IT infrastructure is not reality. Organizations end up buying several different technologies for several different business requirements and so on. And it's not just technologies for applications. It is also the heritage. What infrastructure you got like 10 years ago. Sometimes that's also running in your environment. People call mainframes, right, as legacy, but mainframe is still the heart that's pumping the blood across several organizations, several large organizations. So that, in a sense, drives heterogeneity. And while there is an intent for organizations to bring that level of homogeneity, one single platform, one single infrastructure, but that doesn't happen in reality. Right? With just this example, and several different operating systems, several different hypervisors, several different storage platforms, they exist in any organization, and they exist for a reason. They exist, and hence they add up. The operational overhead, the operational challenges that we earlier talked about, because to manage disparate technologies, you need skills, you need management systems, you need expertise, you need skills, right? So all of it adds up operational overhead for any organization. And that's the reality for any Fortune 500 organization today.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and that's what Sandeep was referring to, right? We try to be cognizant of that and try to minimize that by helping with unifying things, making things easier, consolidate from that perspective. I have a little bit of a related follow-up for Sandeep. There are certain I will call them myths about vSphere. And there, I mean, I'll give you a little bit of free rein there, Sandeep. What do you think is, for when you're looking at the product and product roadmap and see, what do you feel is the incorrect kind of it's a myth about vSphere that it cannot do XYZ or it can do. I know we talk about this separately, but for the audience, if you can share some of your thoughts on, on those, that would be great.
That's a very good question, actually. So, and we heard a few of the things and extension to that question as well. Okay, hey, can we is bare metal better over here or so, right? Okay, I want to start answering this question by dispelling one myth, or just clarifying one important point, right? Okay, about the cost factor. Okay, so what constitute major cost to customers in their data center, right? It's definitely not the infrastructure software stack like vSphere or anything. Okay, the major cost component for customer is the hardware they purchase, the proprietary application cost, okay, if any of the applications which they got, okay, the database applications, so the licensing cost for that, and the operational resources needed to manage the large-scale infrastructure, right, to scale and manage such a large-scale infrastructure. These three constitute major cost to customer. It's not the hypervisor or anything like that. So now coming to the myth part, right? Okay, is okay where people often question is, okay, hey, does bare metal offer a better performance compared to the vSphere? Or is it cost efficient or so? So the answer is no to both the cases, right? So if we understand a little bit better, okay, why look at the hardware space, how it is evolving now, okay? Naveen already highlighted some of things, like the new application requirements, right? They're becoming more real time, okay, require very less latency, need to process billions of transactions per minute or per second or so. So it's evolving, right? And the hardware is also evolving to meet these application requirements. You can see a lot of innovations. The traditional cores are no longer the only thing which are sufficient to meet these application needs. Customers are investing, I mean, a lot of innovation coming around, okay, different type of processors like dense core processor, performance cores, and also there are accelerators which are coming, like, okay, GPUs, FPGAs, ASICs, okay, many things. So it's very critical and very important that, okay, this expensive hardware is utilized very efficiently. And that is where vSphere shines best. So remember the very initial point what I brought. Okay, the goal is to never compromise on the performance. It doesn't mean, okay, we provide better density, allow customers to run more VMs. That doesn't mean, okay, there is a compromise on performance or efficiency. In fact, we have proven in our earlier white papers where we provide way better performance and efficiency than bare metal. That is the first thing, right? And second thing, most of this memory and CPU management, what we have done within vSphere is our own proprietary thing. It is customized, working and partnering with many of the vendors, the hardware vendors. It is customized so much that it gives the utmost performance to run different application types, right? And third thing, okay, the myth about this bare metal or the other things what vSphere can't do, okay, do remember that, okay, where are we going? So the value proposition for the virtualization stack is it provides this isolation, right? Now we are going to run it on the bare metal and say that, okay, we are just going back to 20-year-old story saying that, okay, hey, you'll miss that isolation. So there's just a key security concept, right? So there are these kind of considerations which customers should keep in mind when talking about, okay, hey, can we go with bare metal? Can we have my application run on bare metal rather than vSphere? I think every option, okay, providing the efficiency, a better utilization with the cost, better performance than bare metal, better security than bare metal, and less operational overhead. Why less operational overhead? It's not just only with the life cycle or the migration or other stories what I'm mentioning. So as highlighted by Naveen and others, right? So there are traditional applications, they're not going to go anywhere. So you need a mix of both traditional and modern applications to coexist and be managed with the same architecture. So that is where vSphere provides and shines a lot. So that's the myth and which we dispelled many times and we continue to work on that one. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, that's the product manager of the product speaking with passion about it. I mean, we did cover some of the things that Naveen also mentioned earlier, right? The talking points that he just meant. But I have a very short follow-up, maybe Naveen, because we are going to come up close to our time. But a short one, the last thing that Sandeep was referring to about modern workloads and VMs and containers. You kind of didn't cover that in a lot more detail in your initial talk about virtualization platform needs. But it is true, right? Modern workloads are going to container-based architecture, microservices. We touched a little bit of that. Is that still, where do you see that in the virtualization platform decision making? Yes, I need to be cognizant of it. Yeah, it's something I'll consider in the future. Yeah, if you have a quick answer or a quick thought on it.
Yeah. The way I think about it is that organizations are taking decisions, at least from an infrastructure standpoint, for a hypervisor and container standpoint. There are three major categories in which the customer decisions are happening today. One is maintain. Organizations continue to maintain their existing stack, and the stack is from the underlying hardware components up to the application. The second is maintain. I said maintain, right? And the next one is modernize. Organizations are investing in modernizing their infrastructure stack, the application stack. And one of the very common ways of modernizing application today is to make it container based. You could develop, run, operate it in your own data center with a container native technology. Alternatively, you can go to the public cloud and use public cloud variants of that containers, right? So those are the common technologies, common methodologies I see organizations in adopting in managing their whole overall organization. As far as just the containers is concerned, I don't have the statistics right now, but a very high number of applications are being modernized by using container-based, infrastructure. Is that the right? I think the key question is that the right architecture that you can apply for all your applications? The answer may be no, because not all applications would benefit from the underlying capabilities that containers deliver, right? So the key question is, which applications should you containerize versus which applications should you continue to run and operate on hypervisors? And then the next operational question becomes, hey, you already have so many disparate underlying infrastructure components. How do you manage when you have hypervisor and container-based infrastructures running parallelly in your organization? That's an operational question that organizations have to answer for themselves, in line with the application modernization part. So I'll pause there. I should see if that answers the question that you are trying to come at.
Yeah, definitely. No, it answers the question, and that's also you heard it in Sandeep's answer also about, right? That we are paying special attention to that in trying to make the life of organizations easy while they're planning, because you have to have a dual kind of architecture in place. And yes, there is VMs and yes, there's containers. Let's make it easy. So we're building that into our roadmap. I think we're going to get close to time. I think I've ran into most of the questions I wanted to get. Thank you so much, Sandeep, for your pitch and description of some of the capabilities. Thank you so much, Naveen, for all of the great insights you have from Forrester side. I heard a lot of things going back and forth, and there was a term we used to use. We are in kind of in violent agreement as far as what you see as the pain points and how we see as the same pain points on how we are trying to make sure that they show up in the in the product and help our customers. We heard about some scalability. We heard something about from an availability perspective, security. And to close things out, I would want to run one more poll just to see where our audience sees these as well. Let's do a quick poll. Andrews, if you can launch the second poll, and then
Absolutely. There we go.
and as folks are putting that in, again, rank your criteria, 1 to 5, and see where. So hopefully we can make sure that we are addressing that in the future. And while the audience is filling it in, again, I want to thank Naveen. I know the technical difficulties were there. You had to take this call from India for the audience to know. That's why he's invisible today. Again, also thanks Sandeep for all of your insights. Once the poll comes in, I would like to share that, and then I'll hand it back to Anders to close.
Yeah, no problem. We'll give the poll 20 more seconds here. Get your answers in. I know we still have just about everybody stayed through the session. So we have a lot of folks still answering. This is fantastic.
Awesome. That's great.
All right. 5 more seconds. All righty, and here we go.
All right. How do I interpret this one? So if you can just, I'm seeing the results.
Pretty neck and neck. Looks like availability snuck in as the first just by a little bit over. No, security's actually security first, availability, then manageability and performance were neck and neck, and scalability was last. Number 2 priority, scalability. Number 4, a little tough to say. Looks like it was sort of neck and neck for 4s across the board, and then for for 5 was scalability was in first. Security was the next fewest.
No, it's great. I'm glad that our audience kind of has also seen our thought process, both from an analyst side, from Forrester, as well as from us. Thanks for participating in the audience. Thanks, folks. I will turn it back to Anders for close.
All set, yeah, and thanks again to everybody for presenting today. I love that violent agreement. That's I'm going to use that. I'm going to definitely steal that moving forward. So, thanks Harshad and all of our guests for coming in, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.